part 2 of cryptocurrency. Oh, Kwanya, thank you for that because got it. Thank you. So the part that I mentioned earlier was not recorded. Thank you for that. So great. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring
I
back.
be knowing. I be knowing.
Okay, we got to bring back Mr. Stedman. And Mr. Stedman, if you're here, speak to us and give your quick intro. Well, actually, no, we don't have to do an intro because this is part 2. So what Corey's going to talk about is blockchain. So Corey, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Speak up louder, Corey.
You're very low.
Yeah,
Okay.
that speak louder. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So let me know when you're ready, Corey, because we're waiting. So last 2 weeks ago, Corey spoke about cryptocurrency, and in his presentation, what he actually proved was cryptocurrency legally is considered a currency in the eyes of understanding what money actually is. He showed how money has to have these certain types of qualifications, and he proved how cryptocurrency has these qualifications when it comes to money. So money technically is today, cryptocurrency today is money. So that's what it's all about. So he shared that with us and he proved it. And plus he showed us some other things. He taught us some other things that blew us out the water that was just phenomenal, that the stuff that are not talked about and when it comes to understanding what cryptocurrency is. So Corey, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
We're here now. Good. We're good.
You can hear me well?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yes.
Okay, perfect, perfect.
So Corey, you're up. So we're going to talk about blockchain today. First of all, thank you for coming on again and hanging out with us. When is your
Certainly.
book coming out? How's that going?
It's pretty much done. It is
Okay.
done.
All
It's
right.
just getting formatted. Give me 2 seconds. Hold on, hold on.
Okay. You'll let us know as soon as it's done, right? Okay. So he's coming through, but all is good. If you have any questions, type it into the chat room, and Laquania will make sure that the questions are addressed by Corey.
Yeah. So yeah, my book is pretty much done. Just doing some final touch-ups on it. And I'll keep you posted on that.
Great, thank you. Keep me posted, and I'll make sure that the room knows that it's ready to rock. Okay.
Certainly,
All right.
certainly.
So Corey,
So
I'm sorry.
mhm.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say thank you for having me again. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you're our guy when it comes to this. You're the main one. So that's all that's to it. You know what we'll say? What would Corey say when it comes to cryptocurrency? How's that? What would Corey say? All right. So Corey, you explain to us about cryptocurrency. Now, blockchain is a term that we hear, and can you break down what blockchain actually is and how it works in the process in relation to cryptocurrency?
Yeah, so I'm gonna start off by actually uh stating a quote from um a cryptocurrency project called Aragon. And I really like this quote. It's one of the most succinct quotes I've ever come across in regards to describing um, what a blockchain what a blockchain is. And so the quote goes, "A blockchain is a distributed, append-only database hardened against tampering and revision that provides a single shared source of cryptographically verified truth." Did you hear that?
Yes, repeat it one more time.
I'm going to repeat it one more time.
Thank you.
A blockchain is a distributed, append-only database hardened against tampering and revision that provides a single shared source of cryptographically verified truth.
Okay, Break that down to us.
Okay. So when we think of databases, typically databases have always been centralized. If you think of like the DMV database, um, Starbucks, you know, airline reward points, whatever, right? These are databases that are centralized. They're stored within the private entity, and the data is siloed. It's within that entity. And it's not permissionless. It's permission, meaning to say, for you to have access to it, you have to have permission, and even with that permission, your access would be limited, right? And so typically databases are centralized. However, with the advent of the blockchain, they are distributed and decentralized. And now typically we may think of those two words as almost synonymous, um, whereas they are not. So decentralized means not centralized, but distributed. The word distributed in this context, it implies equity, not equity, but equal. So meaning to say, um, meaning to say, equity is a sense where, okay, if you have 100 apples and this person has 200 apples and we're trying to get to 250 apples, equity is I'm equitably distributing 150 apples to this person that has 100, and then 50 apples to this other person that has just 200 to make up the 250. But in the case of distributed, we're assuming that everyone is on equivalent plane, they're on equal grounds. And so we're equally distributing this database amongst everybody so they each have the same data, but then it's decentralized as well. So when in the quote it says a blockchain is a distributed append-only database. So what that also means is that once data is sent to it, or once data is put into it, that's it. It is it cannot be altered. So another way to think of it is if if we have a WhatsApp group chat and I promise Charles I'm going to give him a case of water, right? And you know I leave the group a couple of days later, but there's like 10 people in the group. Me leaving the group does not erase my promise to Charles of a case of water. And that promise or that statement is equally distributed to each person in the group chat, right? And so it's a group chat is essentially an append only database. Now, when we say it's hardened against tampering and revision, so on the back end, in let's say in a WhatsApp group or a Slack channel, you know, maybe there's some kind of super user on the back end that can change the chat, that can move things around, that could delete people or whatever, right? But what we're saying is that because of the cryptography that is utilized to append the data, right? And it's hardened and it's distributed and decentralized. That's why we know that it's a single shared source of cryptographically verified truth. So because of the mechanism behind the blockchain, we know that once data is appended to it, once data is sent to it, that's it. Now, there's a lot of philosophical implications behind this because we've never experienced anything like this before, where we had this distributed database that that is nearly, well, is permissionless depending on the network that you're referring to, that you know is hardened against tampering. Because in the past 10 years, if you have been following just the news in general, you hear of all these hacks against targets, against this company and that company, and they're largely, by and large, database hacks. They're infiltrating their database, or they're infiltrating their storage, and you know we've always been plagued with compromises of data. And what the blockchain has done is it's created this mechanism where we understand that it is safe from tampering.
Okay.
Any questions? I know that was a lot.
Okay, let me explain. Let me try to explain what you just explained. So simply, what the blockchain is a network of computers that have the same informational database on it. And the exchange is the currency that we're using on top of this blockchain.
Yes and no. So an exchange is basically a window into how the movement of currency is occurring,
Okay,
right? And the value assigned to it. So
okay,
that's what an exchange is.
okay, got it.
Um,
So let me just clarify. Um,
mhm.
so the blockchain, the blockchain is the network.
Yes, it is a network. It's a network and a database at the
Yeah,
same time.
network in the database. So we have 20 people in the room right now. If we had our own network, all of our computers are set up, 20 people, we're sharing the same information and data. We can add to it, but we can't take away from it.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's what blockchain is.
Yes,
Okay,
that's what it is in short. And
in short, you can add to it, but you can't take away from
yes,
it. Got it. Okay,
now,
that's where the truth comes at the end of the definition.
yeah.
Okay, got it.
Now, what the implications of that now is every blockchain essentially has its own physics. And I use the word physics to demonstrate something very profound that we take for granted. If I have a cell phone, or if I have a brick or a t-shirt, and I give it to Charles, I no longer have possession of it. And this is something that, this is like an obvious duh, you know, why even mentioning this? Well, in the computing world, in the world of computers, that does not exist because everything is replicated. That's the core behind our virility of memes all over the internet. There's never been a control of how data is disseminated. Now, once you're able to control how data is disseminated, you can now apply the physics of our real world to these networks. And then now you can create value, because value is predicated on scarcity. And if you cannot control scarcity,
Right, got it. Right.
you cannot create value. And that was the main problem that had always plagued computer scientists for years, was how do we create value on a computer, on the internet, when we can just as easily control C, control V, or command C, command V, a document near infinity, or anything near infinity on the computer, and then you multiply that infinity times the infinity of the internet, and nothing is scarce. And so this is what the blockchain does. It applies physical properties to digital assets and creates scarcity where there was no scarcity able to exist.
So correct me if I'm wrong.
Hmm.
So what you're saying is cryptocurrency cannot be duplicated.
It cannot be duplicated, and that's we're gonna add a tiny asterisk to it, and I'm gonna explain what that asterisk is.
And to me, that brings the value to it,
Yes,
knowing that it cannot be duplicated. So
yes,
therefore, like a photo, I can copy, print, I can paste, I can send that photo out all over to whoever. But
mhm,
cryptocurrency cannot be duplicated in the
yeah,
computer world.
yes,
Okay,
exactly.
that makes sense. So now we're talking about if there are 50 quote unquote coins on the system, those coins cannot be duplicated. So therefore, who has them according to scarcity and the value of it, that determines how much it's going to cost, depends on how many other people want that coin.
Exactly.
Got it. All right,
Plain,
I'm
plain and
just dumbing
simple.
it
Yeah,
down. I'm just dumbing
yeah,
it down so I can understand it.
yeah.
Got it. All right.
We have a
So,
question in the chat
mhm,
too from Richard, from Rich.
no
Rich.
problem.
Okay. Um, Thank you for being here again, Corey. My question is, as I've been listening to you about the blockchain, now in a centralized outfit like American Airlines, all the information goes to one place. But in a decentralized system like a blockchain, I get the impression that the information goes out to everybody who's in the system. Correct?
Yes,
Okay. So because I get the impression that there's these little every person who's on the receiving end of the information is like a little node where
yes,
information is stored. The information is stored throughout the entire community. So if
yes,
somebody wanted to corrupt the system, they would have to basically invade all of the nodes to do so, correct?
yes, and um, it's very costly. And
Okay.
when I say costly, I'm not just talking costly in terms of um, I'm not saying costly in terms of just resources or like how do I say it? When I say it's costly in terms of resources, energy, money, um, time, and power. So, mean to say, if you were trying to undermine or to uh, disrupt a, uh, a transaction on the Bitcoin blockchain, you would have to have a lot of computing power
Mhm.
to disrupt because and what that actually is called a 51% attack. And it has occurred not on the Bitcoin blockchain. It has occurred on other networks. That's why I said there's a tiny asterisk.
I see.
It has occurred, and they fixed it, but that is as a result of a malicious actor amassing amazing amount of power to undermine the currency. Um, and the crazy thing is the amount of money and resources and time it will take to undermine anyone really established blockchain. You might as well uh, you might as well participate in it, um, you know, in good faith. So the bad faith it costs a lot,
Mhm.
and the end result, whatever you try to achieve, it will be fixed by the network. So
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense, in my opinion, other than trying to shake people's faith in the currency.
Okay. So basically, I think what you're saying is the blockchain will actually secure businesses, governments. I think that maybe healthcare, um, motor vehicles, whatever. The blockchain could be very very useful.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get to that. That's thank you for bringing that up. Actually, that's a very good point.
The other thing is, as I listen to you talk about blockchain and value, when now central banks and governments are talking about creating their own coins. Now, in order for them to track and manipulate their coins, wouldn't they have to have a weakened blockchain?
No, not necessarily. So the blockchain is what is the first of the DLTs, and DLT is decentralized ledger technologies. There's the blockchain. There's private blockchains like JP Morgan. They've developed their own private. It's called Quorum.
Mhm.
There's Hyperledger. There's Hashgraph. There's IOTA. Um, the IOTA DLT as well, and they function similar but differently in regards to how they achieve consensus. And consensus is basically we've agreed that everyone who we've agreed that everyone who has what they have in their wallet is what they have. That's what consensus basically means. So it's like, well, if Charles has 10 units and you have 20 units and Sam has 30 units and Laquanda has 40, at the end of the block time, let's say for argument's sake, it's 10 minutes like Bitcoin, we all agree that everyone has this. And that's what consensus is,
Mhm.
right? And so in regards to the DLTs, they all achieve consensus a little bit differently. And so for a government to come out with their own cryptocurrency, um, it's not necessarily weaker or anything like that. It's how they decide to go about achieving consensus um, with stakeholders, the end users, and of course, banking institutions that they've traditionally interfaced with. Does that answer your
Okay.
question?
I think so. Thank you.
Hmm.
Okay, Corey, our question. Um, to clarify, is blockchain the ledger?
Say that over.
Is blockchain the ledger?
Yeah, it is. It is.
So let me walk through this. So, and correct me if I'm wrong. So again, we have 20 people in this room. Our blockchain ledger is connected to 20 people. It's not centralized, being that it's not in one place like Amazon has their computers. It's decentralized. So that means
Yes.
it spans across our 20 quote unquote nodes or networks, our 20. So
No.
the currency that we're using, every time that we use a currency within our 20 nodes, our 20 people, there's an added piece to that blockchain or record that is being done. So therefore, if I make a purchase with you, purchasing your book using whatever currency we use, it's going to update the ledger so that everyone gets the information and data.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, there's only one thing I'll change with what you said is it's not spanned, it's replicated across. Spanning,
Okay, got it. Okay, got it. All
yeah,
right, got it.
spanning implies that some people have certain parts, some people don't, whatever, whatever. Replicating, in this context, it
Okay,
it states that everyone has the same exact copy
got it.
of the database. So in regards to that, the Bitcoin blockchain is over 300 gigs. So just to kind of put that into context, uh, 300 gigs. Let me just do the math real quick. 300 gigs divided by 1.4. Uh, that is about 214 high definition movies.
Wow.
Yeah. So the Bitcoin blockchain is more than 300 gigs in size. So if you were to actually run the full node on your machine, it'll take up 300 gigs. Plus, there's probably more like 500 now, but it'll take up about 500 gigs on your machine to run a full node. So, just to put that into perspective.
Wow. Okay. All right. Yeah. Anyone else in the room have a question? I see some comments in the room. Anyone have a question? Because
Yeah.
what you just did, Corey, you explained it that I get it now. I get it. So I understand it now. So does anyone else have a question?
Yeah, Wayne had a question and then it's Sam. So go ahead, Wayne, and then afterwards Sam can go.
Thank you.
Hi, Corey. Again, my name is Wayne. Thank you so much for returning.
Mhm.
I appreciate
Certainly.
it. Yes, this is amazing. Uh, and I'm really excited about where you're going and what else you're going to be speaking about. So I hope like the questions aren't like throwing you off.
No, no, not at all. No, they're good.
All right, good. All right. So my question, I have two questions, right? How would someone identify a blockchain, right? Like, how would someone know that something is operating on the blockchain? Where would they go to find out whether or not something is actually existing on the blockchain? And is there a concern of like artificial blockchains in regards to like safety issues, like people being told like this is actually running on a blockchain and it's not?
Oh, that's a very good question.
That's
So I'm going to start with that. I'm going to start with the last question first, actually. Um, so an artificial, basically like, oh, well, we're saying this is blockchain related and it's really not.
Yes.
So that's actually something, that's a very good question. I've had that concern myself because I guess around 2017, like 2017, 2018, when there was the first real run up in terms of value. So like Bitcoin hit close to 20,000, um, Ethereum hit around 1,500, and like a whole bunch of currencies like they hit their crest at that moment. Um, there were a lot of companies that were trying to say, well, we're doing this on the blockchain and blah 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 and this and that, and a lot of it was just pure hype. And I believe um, the the correction, right? I don't like to say crash because a crash implies that the whole everything collapsed and then it just went away and disappeared. It was more so a correction in prices where where everything just resettled. And I believe that resettling of the pricing back in 2018 was as a result of all these companies saying we're doing stuff in blockchain and they really weren't, or that their applications just didn't make any sense, or it was just, it didn't make any sense. There was one instance where Praz from the Fugees, he went on CNBC to talk about his blockchain phone. And I couldn't finish watching the video, to be honest, because he did not really understand what he was talking about. And what's a blockchain phone? Like, it doesn't make any sense. If you have a phone that's on the blockchain or is indexing a blockchain, it means that you're literally storing a blockchain on your phone. And just as I said, the Bitcoin blockchain is around 500 gigs. The Ethereum blockchain is around 500 gigs. Are you really storing 500 gigs on your cell phone? What about your data charges? I mean, there's so many questions. And so I believe incidents like that is what not only shook the public's confidence in cryptocurrency, but it gave ammunition to detractors and and critics of cryptocurrency. Um, so yeah, to I guess to answer your question a lot more directly, is there concern in regards to counterfeit or fake or imposter blockchains or whatever? Um, yes, in the sense of companies saying that they're using a blockchain to store data to make themselves appear as if they are more secure than they really are, and they're really not. Now, to answer your second question, or the first question that you had asked, um, in regards to how do you know? So that's that's equally a great question as well. Um, so in a general sense, you don't know. You won't know um, unless they actually say that they are, unless you can actually look at, unless they could provide hashes or a block explorer that, like, for instance, I'm thinking in the case of supply chain management, where you could see how your food arrives to you from farm to table and the journey that it took to get to your table, right? They have some companies that are using blockchain to track the the whole entire process, right? And so you're supposed to be able to see that this data is true and public. Now, really and truly, do you need that to be in a blockchain? Maybe not. Um, but if they're saying that it's in a blockchain, you're putting your trust that it's actually is in a blockchain with what they're saying. The real way to trust, or the real way to know that it's actually in a blockchain, is that if it's part of a public blockchain. So for instance, right, if McDonald's is saying, well, we're going to start sourcing our food ethically, we're not going to use whatever, um, that was picking our vegetables or whatever to make the food, and they said, hey, you can check this, and here is the hash, or here's the link to see how your food arrived to your restaurant. And you click on the link, and it brings you to Etherscan. Now, Etherscan is the block explorer for Ethereum. And so what this means is that anytime you look at something that's on Etherscan, you can have confidence that it's actually real. That's a real blockchain. That's well established, right? If you look at something on, um, you know, Bitcoin.info or blockchain.info, that's the that's the window into the Bitcoin blockchain, right? So to answer your question a little bit more directly, the way that you know is if they're using public blockchains, because then you know that the information is decentralized and distributed, and it's resistant to tampering. If it's in a private blockchain, you don't know. They can say whatever they want. It's just like when on the label of a food, of your food or whatever, you look on the label, it says natural ingredients. Natural ingredients could be soil. It could be anything. You have no way of knowing. So I hope, does that answer your question, Wayne?
It really does. And I just want to say, one of the things that I noticed the first time that you spoke to us, and this time, I really appreciate the order in which you answered the question as well. I think that it provided a lot more value that way. So thank you for taking the time to do it that way. And then I see that Raul dropped some stuff in the chat to support um, the question as well. So I would, just tell the room to check that out. But thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Certainly, certainly.
All right, Sam, you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure, LaQuanya, thank you. Good afternoon, Corey.
Good afternoon. Good
I
afternoon,
have,
Sam.
thank you. I have two questions.
Mm-hmm.
First is, would it be accurate to say that in terms of magnitude, that the blockchain is the most significant innovation since the internet itself? That's my first question.
Mm-hmm.
And my second question is, can you give examples of industries that will be permanently altered or disrupted by the blockchain?
Yes, definitely. Those are two very good questions. And I actually like the first question a lot. Um, so one of the things that I had So just to let the room know, I know Sam for a long time. And so one of the things that I told him was that Bitcoin is the most successful proof of concept in the history of mankind. And he was like, really? And um, I would have to say, I would have to change that. It's no longer a proof of concept anymore, because recently they added smart contract capabilities to it. And so it's probably the most significant or the most successful piece of technology that's ever been created in the history of mankind. Um, and now, in regards to the blockchain, um, I think something is, I think we have to kind of roll it back a little bit, in regards to the founders. Now, the founder of Bitcoin, or the father of Bitcoin, is Satoshi Nakamoto. Now, whether he is um, a person or an entity, like multiple people, um, some believe that his actual real name is Hal Finney, um, who was um, who was one of the early programmers in regards to cryptocurrency, in regards to Bitcoin, that passed away as a result of ALS. Um, they believe that he was actually Satoshi Nakamoto himself. Um, that's very important because Bitcoin is actually a coalescing of multiple technologies. Now, if Satoshi Nakamoto is the father of Bitcoin and of cryptocurrency as a whole, the grandfathers of cryptocurrency and the cryptocurrency industry is Linus Torvalds and Richard Stallman. And without them, we would not have what we have now in terms of Bitcoin and how it's disrupted everything. Now, why are they significant? Richard Stallman created something called the GPL, the General Public License, and this license governs all or most open source projects. Um, and the reason why he created this was back in the 80s, for you to access a computer, you had to go to either a library or a college library. And the license for the operating system prevented people from copying it, and it cost upwards of $5,000 per license for the operating system to use. And he thought this was ridiculous. He wanted to create something that was more permissive, that spurred innovation. And this is where the GPL came into play. Now, on the other end, Linus created a clone of the Unix operating system that cost so much money, and he released it under the GPL. Now, by releasing the Linux operating system, and I'm really I'm like paraphrasing this whole history to answer your question, Sam. The reason why he created Linux is so that people were able to use the computer without having to deal with onerous licensing. Now, by creating Linux, he created this crazy ecosystem of open source software where, facilitated by the GPL, they're able to create not only the Linux kernel, but all this supporting packages. This is where you have companies like Red Hat and OpenSUSE and other Linux distributions like Debian and Slackware and all these other things that came about. Now, by creating this ecosystem, the problem is back in the 90s they didn't have broadband like we have today, right? And so if we're creating software and we're trading software, it's a lot more difficult to keep track and all that. And so what they had to do is they had to use something called a revision system. And they were using something called, there was SVN and then there was CVS. Um, and those, you know, they had a licensing issue with one of those revision systems. And Linus went again and created something called Git. And Git is like the premier software revision mechanism on the internet. And there's a website called GitHub where all these open source projects are hosted. Now, how does this relate to cryptocurrency? Without Git, we would not have Bitcoin because all these users, all these developers, they had to create the software decentralized. You know, they weren't meeting up in a coffee shop. They're, you know, in different ends of on the planet, creating the software, and they had to match up the revisions to come up with what we have. This would not have occurred without the GPL and without Git and without the Linux ecosystem of open source software. So to answer your question, is blockchain the most significant um, piece of software in the history of mankind? And I would say it's, if it's not number one, it's definitely in the top three. And it's because, not only because of the problems that it solves, but because of the ecosystem that it created and it also borrowed from. Now, in regards to your second question, which was other applications and uh, other industries that will be disrupted, um, this is actually the fun. This is actually the fun part because whenever we think of cryptocurrency, we always think of it in the context of finance and value transfer. Cryptocurrency is a confluence of finance, technology, uh, and just social norms in a sense, because we're used to we're used to uh, getting instructions from a government, from authority figures. We've never had a real democratic system per se, where it's provable and that everyone can contribute in their own way, shape, or form. Um, so what cryptocurrency does is not only is it in regards to finance, but then it's also in other industries. It can be applied to other industries as well. And those industries are healthcare records. Healthcare records is a big thing because even though you may speak to a lawyer and they'll tell you, well, you own your own records and blah, 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 X, Y, and Z, right? This is not entirely true. And this deserves a big asterisk because even though you may own your records or you may have access to your records, your records are in the your records are in the care of the healthcare provider, right? And you cannot determine where that data is disseminated, right? Um, in the context of cryptocurrency, you know, just imagine if your healthcare records were an NFT that you held in your wallet and that you were able to decide who had access and for how long they had access and when they and where they could access it. If you're sitting, if you're sitting beachside at the at a Caribbean resort, why should you have access to my records? This don't make no sense. You should be in the hospital accessing my records. Um, so healthcare records to me is a big thing. in regards to where or how cryptocurrency can be applied and how the blockchain could be applied. Um, Voting,
Can I add something?
yes, certainly,
I just saw something about 2 or 3 days ago about artwork that's being sold,
yes.
digital artwork that's going for millions
Hmm.
of dollars. Digital artwork, things that people have never, they'll never be able to actually touch it, but they purchased artwork that's on the computer. But that explains to me what Chloe just said about it can't be duplicated. So therefore, that one piece of artwork or that one code right there belongs to the person who bought it.
Yeah, certainly.
That's another to add on to when it comes to digital records and that type of information and data. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm going to touch on that. Thanks for bringing that up, Charles. So, in regards to voting, um, hmm, voting is another big thing as well. Um, I don't want to say that all elections are fraudulent or 100% in good faith, right? I do believe that for the most part, we try to give in to our better angels and we try to do things as best as we can. However, nothing is 100%. With that being said, in regards to voting anywhere, right? Number one, voting is still done by paper. Um, Voting is not equally distributed. Voting is, you know, causes problems, everywhere. You know, I mean, just in January 6th, this year, for the first time in the history of the United States, we saw not only a group of people dispute an election that by and large was safe and secure, but they violently voiced their opinion. This is what you see in places like Venezuela, you see this in Africa, you see this in Asia, you know. We have seen this even in Europe, you know, where elections are violently disputed, right? What the blockchain can do is not only can it make voting equitable, right? It can make it safe, it can make it secure, it can make it accurate. If everyone has a cell phone, right, and you vote for your candidate, whether it's ranked choice voting or whether it's just, well, I just want this guy, right? And you vote, not only are the records permanent and they're tamper free, right? But that it can occur in real time and you can get an election result at the end of the day or at the end of the voting period. We don't have to wait in limbo um, to get results. And I think this would change. It would change everything. It would. Yes, people will be salty about the end result, but their saltiness would be more so about, well, my candidate didn't win, as opposed to ammunition to say that, well, he did not win because the other side is guilty of fraud. Well, we're working we're working on a blockchain, the public blockchain. We understand that this is tamper proof, this is secure. So voting is a big thing in regards to application. Vehicle registration. Vehicle registration is, everyone's been to the DMV. We don't even have to talk about this. This should be, we should all have QR codes on the front of our cars, in the windshield, and that's it. You should be able to register your car from your cell phone. That's it. I don't really have to go into that anymore. Um, identity declaration. Um, just as Charles had mentioned, uh, you know, the Taliban took over Afghanistan, after 20 years of, being in quasi hiatus. Um, they took over. Now, there's been a major exodus of people um, from all parts of Afghanistan into the choke point of the airport, and they're trying to get out. Now, what does that do? Well, that leaves a vacuum of not only identity but also uh, land ownership. You know, now in the event that the Taliban, are forced out of power, which is very likely within the next 5 years, their last bout of power, it didn't last more than five. It didn't last for more than 7 years. So it's quite likely that they're not going to last that long either. And what that does is when people are fleeing from conflict zones, they usually just carry what they can carry. And oftentimes they lose what they carry. How do you declare yourself in the next country? You get on a plane, you stow away in some cargo bay. When you get off at the next place, how do you declare who you are? And for the xenophobes out there who want to use that as a reason to deny people entry, to deny refugees entry to any country, this is the perfect opportunity. Well, we don't know who you are. You have no ID. You could be just as bad as the people who you claim you've been leaving. Um, the blockchain can solve this in regards to not only storing your identity on a blockchain, but then recovering your identification using your biometrics. Um, so that's something huge.
Wow.
Land,
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt, Corey. I
yeah,
just want to be mindful of the time.
the
We're
time.
at
Oh, I'm so
1:06.
sorry.
No, please, we want you to come back anytime you want to come back. There's so much great information. We have another question in the chat.
Okay,
Raul will probably be the last question that we take before we close out, before you and Charles close out. Raul, you
okay.
want to unmute yourself?
Hi, Corey. Can I be heard?
Yes, yes.
Corey, I just want to give you blessings, man, and Laquanya and Charles. Thanks for having him back. I'm building a list like right now of like everything that you're saying, and my question actually falls into what you were where you left off. So you basically listed some of the stuff, which is great, but I'm still going to ask the question just in case you can expand on more stuff. As equity investors, how do we invest in the blockchain or derivatives of the blockchain outside of crypto?
So there's various companies that are well, right now there's various companies that are strictly just mining companies, and they strictly just deal with Bitcoin. Um, there are other companies that do deal with Ethereum as well, but I'm not aware of their. I don't know their names off the top of my head.
Okay.
But like there's some companies like Riot and Mara that do deal with Bitcoin mining directly.
So based on what you were just saying, you were like just listing industries and sectors like healthcare, voting, information, that kind of stuff. So I guess we can probably just start with just researching industries and sectors.
Yes.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Thank you for that, Raul. One more thing from Richard. Do governments want to go digital because the digital system will sustain 0%? I'm not sure if I'm asking that right. Rich, you want to ask your question?
Yeah, a lot of the reading I've been doing is they're talking about the governments want to go digital because the digital system will support a negative 0% rates. Whereas the physical system that they have, the fiat money cannot go below zero.
Yeah, so that's I don't know. Well, hmm. So a little background on that, just to explain to everyone what he means by 0% or negative rates. I'm assuming you talk about negative interest rates, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like in Japan, they have negative they have negative interest rates. Basically what a negative interest rate is, if you have a savings account, instead of them paying you, um you pay them to store your money, which you do anyway. But yeah. Um you know what? I don't know. Um, I I think the main reason why any government will go digital is just it makes it makes referencing and retrieving data a lot easier. Um, there's less friction. You know, when you're dealing with paper records, sorting through paper records or anything in regards to paper, it could take days, it could take weeks, even months to reconcile. Making it all digital just removes a lot of friction.
Mhm.
So that would be my guess.
Okay, I'll look into that more. The only other thing I would ask is, are you familiar with the Hive blockchain? I know that I think it was either Venus or Serena Williams has invested in the Hive blockchain, and I'm trying to
Hive?
find out a little bit more about that. Yeah.
No, I'm unaware of that.
Okay. Thank you.
Certainly, certainly. So real quick, I just want to go right back to land registration. Um, and this is again, this kind of refers to conflict zones. Um, if you're leaving a conflict zone, the conflict will eventually finalize. It will eventually end. How do you claim your land? How do you claim your land back? After all the rebels and all the government forces have, you know, uh, are friends again. You know, how do you go back and claim what is yours? And the blockchain could do that. So it could be uh, it could be utilized in the real estate sector. So that's that's basically I think that's basically it in regards to. I mean, going back to what Charles said in regards to art. Typically when we think of art on the internet, we just think about pictures being shared on social media. But in regards to the metaverse, which are universes that live on top of the internet, like Roblox or Minecraft or just Centraland, you know, that's where NFTs will really shine because they're so unique and if you're telling someone that, hey, this this artwork by Beeple is only being you can only see it inside of the Decentraland. It actually it's it you know it makes the experience more unique, and it gives more credence, or it gives more value or more weight to why NFTs have value because of the mediums that they exist within. Um, and lastly, I know, one thing that we like to deal with is like luxury items, and a major thing that comes out of China is counterfeit fashion. And how do you verify that something is not fake? Your Jordans or your Telfar bag. Um, there needs to be a way that there's provenance to what you've bought. Um, StockX has an authentication system, but in general, uh, items coming from a manufacturer, they don't have that kind of authentication system in place, and this is where blockchain could come into could come in handy.
Okay. Um, another one. What can I say? I'm sitting here learning just as well as other people in the room. So I'm glad and fortunate that Sam connected me to Corey. Yes, the information is amazing. I put some information in the Telegram chat room for you guys. If you are not part of the Telegram room, let us know so that we can add you to this. We are actually about to make some changes within our technology. So we're going to roll this out to you and let you guys know what's going on. But again, what we're looking at is we're adapting, we're morphing, we're putting all these things together. And we remember we've been, Laquanya, how long have we been rocking this?
Oh boy, like less than 3 months.
Less than 3 months.
Yeah, we're really growing. But real quick, I just want to segue into the blockchain investments. So some members here, we speak about stocks and things like that. And Riot is a very good blockchain to invest in. When I got in, I don't want to say too much because I know we're being recorded, but when I got into Riot, it was at like $3 or $4 a share, and this was sometime last year. And now it's at like it fluctuates between $30 and $40 a share now. So you can do the math on that. So yeah, Riot is a really good blockchain to get into, and I'm gonna start looking into some more because it's definitely becoming popular. So, you know, we want to get in on those money trains.
Got it, got it. Very good, very good. Real quick, just want to acknowledge Destiny, you've been here before. Cliff, you've been here before. Isaiah, I'm not sure if you're new to the group, but welcome. Journey, we introduced. Matt Dixon, come back. What's going on, Matt? These are new names I haven't seen before that came in that we're looking at now. So just want to thank you guys. We meet every Sunday here on Zoom. So if you want to stay connected, stay plugged in. That's the key. One of the things that I want to talk about real quick, and then we're going to sign off, is we talk about this space, what we're doing. And one of the objects of what we do is share knowledge and information and data. And if you look at blockchain, it's kind of like the same thing. It's a group of computers that have a ledger that's sharing knowledge and information and data. That's the same thing we're doing. So all the things that we're looking at, it might not be connected, but later on down the road, if you can make the analogies and the similarities, it's all the same thing. This is why we try to stress the similar parts so that you can take the big terms and understand it on a point of a basic 8th grade could truly talk about it. And this is what it all boils down to, us understanding, so that I have the saying is, you don't have to know everything, but at least be in the ballpark so that you can understand the conversation. And the things that you don't understand, you bring that to us and we'll get you those answers. And that's the key point that we do. One of the things we do when it comes to Sunday school. And just remember, it's not where you're from financially, it's where you're at financially. And that's one of the key points that we stress when it comes to Sunday school financial literacy. So I want to thank Corey. Guys, open up, give him a shout. Say thank you, guys. Open up.
Thank
Give him a
you.
shout.
Thank you, Corey.
Hey, Corey,
Certainly.
come back
Thank
anytime.
you. Thank you.
Peace, Corey.
Thank
Peace.
you.
Thanks, Corey. Come back soon. Thank you.
And we
Again,
can't wait
certainly.
for your book. You got at least 21 people buying the book. At least.
Got it.
Nice,
Facts.
thank you.
So just think about what's happening, what we're doing. Just want to share with you guys, understand that this is what we do, this is who we are. And the fun part about, you're smarter every single week when you sign off when it comes to Sunday school. Because we want to make sure that when it comes to financial literacy, you understand what it is, what it all boils down to, and how to apply it. That's the next part, is the application of it. So I just wanted to share that with you. For you guys in the room, quick commercial. I am starting my fall Forex group. I'm looking for 20 people, and it will start the first September Tuesday, the first Tuesday of September. So if you are committed for 3 months and want to learn Forex, hit me up. Make sure you let me know so that we can get you started, signed up for Forex. There is a fee. Speak to me about it and I will let you know so that we can get started and get rolling. Other than that, LaQuania, anything else before we say?
Yep, next week is Labor Day weekend, so we won't have Sunday school next Sunday because I'm probably gonna be outside, right? But be safe if y'all gonna go outside, okay?
You're not gonna be on the parkway, are you? Because you know they cancel that.
I mean, you don't worry about what I be doing. I'm gonna be safe. And I want everybody to be safe. But also but I'll be safe. We're gonna be outside somewhere. So we all hear about business and building our wealth, but it's important that we enjoy our life too. So work hard, play hard, and network with each other. Patrice is new, but Patrice just started a new business venture where she's doing picture reprints. So network with each other. That's what we're all about here at Sunday School, fellowshipping, getting more information and networking so we can all support each other businesses. So that's how we're going to close out. Thank you again, Corey. Anytime you want to come, people look forward to you being here just because you're so thorough and you break things down in such layman's terms that it takes a lot of the confusion out of crypto and blockchain. So thank you again.
Certainly. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, LaQuania.
Have a great week. Remember, if you're not part of the Telegram group, let us know so we can put you in. Make sure you're part of the email so you know exactly what's going on every week and what's happening and what's moving and shaking. Thanks a lot, guys. Good night. Have a great week. See you guys in 2 weeks.
See you soon. Enjoy, everyone.
Have a great weekend, everyone.